So you're struggling on this inequality assignment, so I'm going to help you out a little more. I'm going to go over a couple of these problems here, and then you're going to use that to solve the other inequalities on this assignment. So if we look at the first one, this is called an inequality because it has a greater than or equal to sign. It doesn't have an equal sign. The symbols are greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, greater than, and less than. These are called inequalities. And you solve them the same way that you solve an equation. You're trying to get that variable by itself. So we need to isolate the variable by moving things to the other side of the inequality sign by doing the opposite, the inverse. So the only difference with inequalities when you're solving them is if you ever have to multiply or divide by a negative number when solving, then you flip the sign. So it's important that you solve this vertically from top to bottom and that you're doing one step at a time. And after each step, ask yourself, do I flip the sign? Again, only if you multiply or divide by a negative number. So with this one, to get x by itself, it is being multiplied by -7, and we're adding 3. I'm going to undo that plus 3 by doing the opposite, which is to subtract 3. And what you do on one side, you need to do on the other side of our inequality symbol. Because 3 minus 3 cancels, and I'm left with -7x and a -21. Now, do I flip the sign? Well, what step did we just perform? We subtracted. We're not looking to see if our answer is negative. We're thinking, what did we do? We subtracted 3. We only flip the sign if we multiply or divide by a negative number. Now to get x by itself, it's being multiplied by -7, so I'm going to undo that by dividing by -7, because that's the opposite. And I'm left with 1x and a +3. Do I flip the sign? Yes, because here the action we just performed is dividing by a negative number. So now it is less than or equal. Now to graph it, it's important to know that if you have a less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, you do a solid dot. So if it's less than or equal to 3, I know it's equal to 3, so I'm going to put a solid dot right there at 3, and then everything less than. So I'm going to point to the numbers that are smaller than 3. You can also check to make sure you're going in the correct direction because the arrowhead is going to match the inequality symbol. Now let's look at the next one. So 1/3 times n plus 6 is greater than 4. So n is being multiplied by 1/3 and we're adding a 6. So first I'm going to undo the adding 6 by subtracting 6. Because 6 minus 6 is 0, so I'm left with 1/3 n and a -2. Do I flip the sign? What did we do here? We just subtracted, so the sign stays the same. You only flip it if you multiply or divide by a negative number. Now let's undo this multiplying by 1/3. There's two ways you can do it. You can multiply by the reciprocal, because 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 1 divided by 1 is 1. Or you can think of this as 1 divided by 3, and undo that divided by 3 by multiplying by 3. Because 3 divided by 3 is 1. So I'm left with 1n, which is just n, and then a -6. Do I flip the sign? I multiplied by a positive number. Even though my answer is negative, the action I performed is multiplying by a positive number. So I do not flip the sign. Now let's graph it. Now if the symbol is ever greater than or less than without our little equal sign also, then you do an open dot. So I'm going to put my open dot at -6 because it's not equal to -6, but it's equal to everything greater than -6. So I'm going to go in this direction. And notice that the head of my arrow equals is the same as the greater than symbol. Now I want you to try the third one there on your own. It's the same process. There are some decimals, but just put those in your calculator if you need to. The next three problems, I'm going to help you in writing the inequality, but I want you to solve each of these on your own in order to get credit for this assignment. So when you're writing an inequality, your first step is to always define your variable. What is the unknown? And it says a streaming company charges $27.50 to set up an account and $12 per month to enjoy the service. If Landon paid a total price of less than $243.50, how many months did he use the company service? So they're telling us that M is our unknown. They're asking how many months. They're saying use M as our variable. Now, when you're writing an equation or an inequality, if you ever see the word per, then that means you are multiplying. So here, when it says $12 per month, then it's $12 times the number of months. If you only have the service for 1 month, you're paying $12, but if you have it for 3 months, it's 12 times 3. So you're always taking the $12 and multiplying it by the number of months. And then it's also $27.50. So this is how much they're paying, $27.50 plus $12 per month. The other number we have here is $243.50. So what symbol should we put here? This is the amount we're paying, and we want that total price to be less than $243.50. So this is the inequality that I want you to solve. And M is going to be the number of months he uses the service. Let's take a look at this one. Carlitos rents a limousine for the night. The limo costs $5.25 plus 15 cents for each mile driven. Or you could say 15 cents per mile is another way of thinking of it. You can reword that. If Carlitos has a budget of $600, what is the largest number of miles the limousine can travel? So here we need to define our variable. It's not telling us what letter to use. You can use any letter you want. The variable is usually in the question. It's the unknown number, the largest number of miles. So I'm going to use M for miles. So let's think about it. The limo costs $5.25 plus 15 cents per mile. And the budget is $600. So I want you to finish writing this inequality. I want you to think about per mile. The number of miles is M. Do we multiply 525 times M? Or do we multiply 15 cents times M? So where does that M go? Here or here? And then the symbol. If the amount that he is paying is here, and the budget is $600, do we want this to be less than $600? If so, is it okay if it's also equal to $600? Or do we want it to be greater than $600? And if so, is it okay if it's equal to $600? So again, you need to finish writing this inequality and figure out where does the S go or M go? Here or here? And what symbol are you going to put here? What inequality symbol? And then I want you to solve it. Here's one more. Diaz collected no fewer than 388 coats for charity. So that's a total. Just going to write that down. She gave 64 of the coats to her church and donated the remaining coats. So 64, and then she donated some too. If D gives 36 coats to each shelter, how many shelters receive coats? So what is our unknown? how many shelters. So let's have that be our variable. So you can reword things, 36 coats to each shelter. That's like per shelter. Each shelter gets 36 coats. So thinking that, do we put the S here with the 64 or with 36? You need to decide that. Is it 64 times S or 36? Then you need to think, what goes here? What inequality symbol? It says that this is no fewer than 388. So is this less than or greater than 388? Could it be equal to 388? So write that inequality and then solve it.